there's really nothing to fear in life, right? There is only finding solution.
Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this.
Hey, Hugh. So we have a question here from a trader who is asking about, we asked basically what's the thing that you would like to most change about your trading. And he says, I would really love if I could trade without fear. So this trader seems to have a lot of issues with fear. So I have some thoughts on that. So usually what I've noticed in most instances, what you're going to see with most traders is they're either going to be fearful of they're sort of, if they have like low win rate strategies, they don't want to take the next trade. So they're kind of like shy, like trigger shy, I guess you would say. So they miss signals or they don't want to take the next signal. So they're fearful of the loss, right? And then there are other traders who basically fear going wild. they have no like that's the opposite, right? They take too many trades. They take trades on systems they haven't tested. They just get someone tweets out something and they take a trade based on the tweet or the article that they read at FX Street or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So, there's those. But I think it basically comes down to the fear. Really, we have fear of the unknown, right? And so that's what I learned from a lawyer. He wrote a book on, there was a guy named Jerry Spence, and he was a defense attorney, and he never lost a case. He's a famous one out in Wyoming. And anyway, so I read his book and he was talking about how fear tells you that you're like alive, and it really kind of switched it on for me, this idea of embracing the fear, because that's really the unknown. When you have the unknown, which is what we deal with in trading, you deal with probabilities, right? So we don't know there really aren't very many certainties in trading. Even if you have a stop loss and a take profit, it's not certain that you're going to hit either of those, right? Mm. In theory, it could gap over both, either one of them, really, or it could stay in the range for your entire life, I guess, in theory. But the point is that fear is something that you have when you don't know what to expect. That's what fear is, right? And it's the same with, like, if you go to a country, like let's say you live in a country where the country next to your country, the neighboring country, there's always this conflict with the two countries. And so what happens is you have like these really interesting ideas in your head about what the people are like in the other country, right? Mm-hmm. If you've ever talked to someone in Japan about people in Korea, or people in Korea about people in Japan, you kind of get this idea, right? Like there's this kind of unknown, and it happens all over the world. It could be, I don't know, maybe in Peru and Bolivia, they have the same thing, but wherever there's kind of this conflict of opposing views, right? So, and that's really just the unknown. You don't know what's going on there. So my antidote for this would be to say, you need to get more information. And the best way to do that is to actually practice your strategy. It sounds kind of obvious, but a lot of traders don't practice their strategy. They don't use a simulator where they go in and take the trades as if they were trading live in a live account and gather up that data and get that experience and that sort of stuff. Because the more experience you have with your strategy, the less fearful you are, because what happens over time is the unknowns they shrink down because you've traded the strategy in so many different situations, right? So that's really, I think, what I would say to this trader, but I'd be curious to hear what you think about this. This trader who says, I really, trying to trade without fear.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And just to take a step back from what you're saying, I think I've noticed that the people who are afraid to trade, generally half the time, I don't know, more than half the time, are trading sizes that are too big for them. So that's why they're afraid to take the trade. So they're going to lose too much money relative to their account, or they're just, like you said, over trading, right? So you want to take a step back and ask yourself, am I risking too much? And then, is that why I'm afraid? And then going forward, I would also invite you to look at things that you're afraid of in your real life. Like, have there been situations where you went to a country and, you were afraid because you didn't know what was going on? So like for me, I'm in the US. So if you go down to Mexico, certain parts of Mexico will look kind of sketchy compared to, neighborhoods in the US, right? But they're equally safe. Nothing's going to go wrong there most of the time. But they do look a little sketchy because they don't have any like paved roads in some areas, and some houses are run down and there's a nice house next to it. So just look at those kinds of things in your life and see, how can I face some of those fears? And when I did face some of those fears, was it as bad as I thought it was going to be? Because it's tough to say, but like, it's easier said than done. But there's really nothing to fear in life, right? There is only finding solutions, and being afraid of things makes you kind of freeze up and not take action, not look for solutions. So I think that's a good way to kind of back into the fear of trading, is to look at what you're afraid of in your real life, and kind of analyze it from a more distanced and more objective view, and then look at your trading in the same way.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because what you were saying about like the neighborhoods, I think you get like these cues. So for example, if let's say you're from Ohio, all right? And so you learn these cues. Like if you're driving through a neighborhood and, everyone's got like the nice green lawn and they're all mowed nicely, and they've got their SUVs out front and everything, that cue for you is like, this is a safe neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. But if you go to that neighborhood where like people are just kind of standing around, not doing much, and there's maybe some rubbish like on the sidewalk and stuff, and it's a bit dirty, some broken down cars or something, cars without wheels or something like that, you start thinking, okay, this doesn't look right. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like we get these, it's like we have these heuristics in life where it's like a mental shortcut. It's like, okay, I see this, so therefore this. And I think it's exactly what you're saying with trading. Like, I have a losing trade now. I've had 2 losing trades now. I've had 3 losing trades now. Okay, I'm trading a system that's going to bankrupt me. I've seen this before, right? Yeah. I'm going to lose my trading account, right? So you kind of get these cues. Yeah. And so the best way to, like what you said, like it's really interesting what you said, that prompted a thought in me about they're just challenges, right? So it's always a challenge. Like when you have a fear of something, it's fearful because it's a challenge and you don't know what the solution is. But what's interesting about that is to choose to be fearful is to actually choose to not accept the challenge. Do you know what I mean? So you're basically saying, I'm scared, I'm not going to look for the solution. You know what I mean? Isn't that interesting? It's and what you said, that kind of prompted that thought in me of it's true. Oh, everything's a challenge, right? It's not about a problem or a roadblock or this. It's just a challenge. And whether or not you accept that challenge, whether or not you want to look for solutions to that, that's your choice. You can choose to sit there and be fearful, or you can choose to go, okay, this is what it is. How do I overcome this? What do I need to do? Right. So yeah, it's a really good way of reframing it. And that's actually, reframing is just a great way in a lot of things in life to reframe that as a challenge. Right. So we sometimes with self-talk, we talk about things and we make them bigger than they are. And instead, oh gosh, I've had 5 losing trades in a row. I'm just going to lose my account like I did last month, and blah, blah, blah. This system isn't going to work, blah, blah, blah. But if you reframe it in terms of, okay, well, what have my stats been? Okay, did my stats look like this? Okay, how many losing trades did I average? Well, it only has a 31% win rate. So I've actually, to have 8, 9 losing trades is not unheard of. So I've only had 5, so just kind of that giving yourself a different perspective. Sometimes it helps if somebody else can do that for you, which is why, like having a trading accountability partner, someone that you talk to, sometimes they can help you reframe it and see it in a different way too.
Yeah. I think it's also a growth. It's a growing pain basically, right? Like think about when you're 5 years old, you were really scared of cars because of these big giant things that make a lot of noise. But now like it's a similar thing. Now you're not afraid of them because you know how they work, and you know that they, you just get in them and you go. But it's a similar thing with trading. Like if you're afraid of taking a trade, then you have to grow into not being afraid of taking the trade. So just something to work on.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
Walter.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.